Welcome back to the Rowan's podcast. I am the Rowan. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and a comfy chair and let's chat. Today, I wanted to share a Bible verse with you, and it is one that many of you will be familiar with because you've seen it plastered pretty much everywhere. It could be on a poster, it could be on an inspirational card, it could be on a t-shirt, on a coffee cup, on a water bottle. And I wanted to share it with you and talk about its importance in the proper context of this verse. I'm talking about Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. And a lot of times it's used to help people realize or help people inspire them to get them to know that, hey, we can do anything. We can accomplish anything because Christ is going to give us strength. We can accomplish anything no matter what. This is not necessarily wrong, but it's being taken out of context. And a lot of times we choose to do that. We cherry pick verses out of the Bible that sound good and slap them on a coffee cup or a water bottle or something. But we're not taking into consideration what the actual context of this verse really means. And in order to do that, and one of the things I learned when I was a minister was that when you prepare your sermon and stuff, and you have like the certain verses during your sermon, you read the verses before and verses after, and you research and you find out, like when the verse was written, who it was written by, what was the surrounding circumstances and things like that. So there's more to this verse than just that. This was written by Paul, who at one point in his life, Paul, before he came to know Christ, before he became an apostle, before he became a servant of Christ, his name was Saul, and he very much persecuted Christians. He dragged them off to prison. He had them killed. He had them beaten. He had them hunted down. He persecuted all Christians until one day when Jesus called him, and Jesus called him into service, and he became a believer of Jesus, and his name was changed. Jesus changed his name to Paul. And I want to read to you 11 through 13, Philippians 4, 11 through 13. Now that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. Now, Paul had suffered a great deal in his service to Christ. He suffered shipwrecks. He suffered illness. He himself was imprisoned and put into chains and beaten. He was in prison several times. But yet he learned that he could withstand all this suffering, all of wanting to be hungry. Of being hungry, of wanting to eat, of being in need, being sick, being in prison, or being free. He learned that through everything, no matter what it was that he went through, he could make it through because Christ gave him strength. Jesus gave him that strength. And that is where that verse comes from. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. So if we really look at that, we can, each time we see that verse, we should really think about what that means. It doesn't mean, yes, because Christ strengtheneth me, I can go run that marathon, or I can get that job that I wanted to get, or I can just do whatever it is I want to do because Christ is going to strengthen me. That is what we tend to use that verse for inspirational purposes, but that is not what it means. And when we look at it, we should be thinking of, we could be going through a really hard time. We could be in need. We could be hungry. We could be in the hospital. We could be sick. We could be having family problems, marital problems. We could be having, financial problems. We could be homeless. We could be, in an accident, anything. And this verse should mean to us that no matter what it is, good or bad, we can make it through because Christ will strengthen us. He will give us that ability to make it through. We are not alone. This verse should give us hope rather than inspiring us to stay strong. It should be a beacon of hope for us because this shows us that we will never be left alone even though we suffer. And he did tell us that being a follower of him, we will suffer. He didn't promise us a glorious, fantastic life with everything we wanted, happiness and all the time. He did say that we will suffer. And not to say that there's not joy, because there is joy in suffering, and there is joy and happiness are two different things. But the point is, if we look at this verse in the proper context, we can see that it's giving us hope. So no matter where we're at, no matter what we're doing, we can make it through because Christ will give us strength. We can look to Christ as our strength. He will help us through. He will hold our hands. He will help us through. He will guide us through. So I think it's important that we understand that. If we look at it in the context, because Paul, he really did go through a lot. And yet he still had hope. He still had faith. He still believed that Christ gave him strength. And he did. He made it through. The next time you see this verse somewhere, let it give you the hope that it was intended to do. Not just let it strengthen you, because, it should do that too. But let it fill you with hope. And no matter what situation you are in, you will make it through. Because we can lean on Jesus. He can be our strength. And he will see us through. And the other thing I wanted to say about that was that Jesus is the great shepherd. And a shepherd, when even just one of the sheep are lost, he will leave his flock and he will go and look for that sheep. And do you know what he does when he finds that sheep? He puts that sheep on his shoulder and carries that sheep back to the flock. And so if you look at it, when we're in those hard times, when we're in those bad times, and Jesus has given us the strength to get through it, he is carrying us through it. Not only are we leaning on him, he is carrying us through it. So I hope everyone has had a blessed day, and I hope your evening is very much blessed. And thank you for stopping by for a chat. More later.